Well, Judge Ratha, this video is for you. This video is for you. There's no way a normal judge in a high court with 50 years experience acts and behaves like this. Do you think that the police would go around searching for people with foot injuries if there was no one who got shot in the foot at Senzo's crime scene? And the judge is like, no, but it's common sense. Common sense go better. Maloy, when I catch you, as of a lab, my cell phone records and dance in Jungle warning Judge Ratha. Is that a coincidence or is it some modus operandi of the cold case unit?
And I'm bad like the Barbie. I'm a doll, but I still wanna party. Pink felt like I'm ready to bend. I'm a 10, so I pull in a 10. Like Daddy, Stacy.
Hello and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Nugwazi Ndombela, also known as Kwazi Bear on all social media platforms. Do subscribe, be a part of this family, and if you are a returning stubby, welcome back, darling. Now guys, as you know, every week I bring you the proceedings in the Senzo Meyiwa trial, so I'm here to do exactly that. But before we get into this video, you know the rules of this house, and this time I'm starting with the most important one. Please don't skip the ads. Guys, please do not skip the ads. Don't skip the ads because that is how I make the money on YouTube. So even if it's an ad, 30 seconds, guys, just watch it in full so that I get my money in full. You understand? And the next thing is that please like this video. Guys, YouTube, when it sees people liking the video, it sort of notices that people are interested in this type of video, and therefore it will recommend the video to more users. And at this point in South Africa, with our media houses not doing justice, we really do need more people to know about what is happening in the Senzo Meyiwa trial, as it is a matter of national importance. Okay, and also another one, please do comment with your thoughts down below. You know I love to engage with you guys in the comment section. I will respond to every comment when I can, so make sure that you do engage with me in the comments. And then the last one, which is a bonus, please do super thanks if you can. And guys, I just want to take this opportunity to thank you all so much for the love that you showed me in last week's video. The super thanks for my birthdays, the messages were really appreciated so much. So guys, without wasting too much of your time, let us get into the proceedings of this week. On Monday, the 23rd of March, when we continued with the cross-examination of accused number 2, Ubongani Ntanzi, Baloyi basically continued with the evidence of the loan accounts that Ntanzi had with Capitec Bank. He did go through some of the transactions as well as the payments that were made into this particular loan account. Now, if you do recall, it was said that Ntanzi had 3 Capitec accounts linked to his profile, one being the main transactional account, and there were 2 loan accounts that were closed. Now, what I did pick up, I think I did mention it even in last week's video, is that there was a loan that was paid into Ntanzi's account in 2015. Now, what I noticed about the state's cross-examination is that they were trying to make it seem as though Ntanzi's loan was taken in 2015 and not in 2014. However, I have a problem with this because when the loan of 50,000 was received in July of 2015, there was 2 payments that were made from his transactional account, which had a description of settlement of loan, which means that Ntanzi had 2 previous loans that he had with Capitec that he had closed when he took this 50,000 rand loan. Now, as to when those loans were opened, we don't have the details of that. As to when they were closed, obviously they were closed when Ntanzi was making the settlement payments when he received the 50,000. Now, when we do loan accounts and at banks, this is something that some people are not familiar with, especially when the evidence of Ntanzi was being led, is that when you go to a bank and you apply for a loan, there is a separate account for the loan account. So basically you apply for a loan, it gets approved, the loan account has its own account number. However, you are unable to transact from this account. You are required to then transfer the funds, or the consultants at the bank transfer the funds from the loan accounts into your transactional accounts. Well, what is interesting about Ntanzi's account is that He took this now new loan in 2015 that was for 50,000, and the transactions for that loan are reflecting that he was paying an amount of 1,722 rands and some odd cents into this loan account to repay this loan account. Now, one of the arguments that came up in the cross-examination is the fact that the reference number for the payments is not exactly the loan account number. It happened to be the loan account number, and it had several digits additional to the loan account number, which obviously the state could not explain what those numbers represented, which is why I say we should have had a consultant from Capitec to come and actually testify about this information, because there's so many questions that are just left hanging with regards to Danzi's accounts. Now, we've already had Constable Zungu, who has come to testify before this court and sort of backdate dates from incidents that happened in 2017, and he said that they happened in 2014. And now it makes me think, what if the state has now moved Danzi's dates from 2014 to 2015 for the loan account? Now, another transaction that was picked up on Danzi's statement is a transaction that took place at Spitz in Johannesburg, where Ubaloyi tried to point out that Danzi had said that he's unfamiliar with Johannesburg. Now, Danzi's response to this is that, yes, I am unfamiliar with Johannesburg, and as you can see, the transaction that took place in Johannesburg at Spitz, it was on my way home. If you can see, the next transaction after that, it actually reflects that I was in Nongoma and actually transacting in Nongoma after that, which means that I might have passed at Spitz on my way to Kwanongoma. Basically, the taxis that he takes from Rustenburg obviously pass through Johannesburg, and then from Johannesburg he takes a taxi to KZN. So that is the reason why there would be some transactions in Johannesburg. But he does say that the only places he knows in Johannesburg are the places that are near the rank that he takes his taxis from. Now, another issue that came up in cross-examination is the issue of Jack Butelezi's evidence, where Jack Butelezi had said that Ndanzi used to dance for the Fosslerist group for Ingoma. Now, Ndanzi's response to this is that is not true, because firstly, I've never danced for Fosslerist. I've always had my own group, and the person that did dance for Fosslerist group is actually Ukwabin. He even goes as far as saying, when we used to take pictures, there's even pictures in my phone, if you take note of the pants that we're wearing different types of pants. Kwabini was in the group in Fosslerist, but I never danced for Fosslerist group. Yes, I would travel with my group sometimes to go to Johannesburg for these different dances, but I have never danced for the Fosslerist group. Now, Baloyi goes back to the evidence of Mohane on Monday, where Mohane says that he doesn't recall Danzi telling the police that on the day of the incident he could have either been at home or at work. He says that according to him, Danzi said that he was at work, and for him, when Danzi said he was at work, he was referring to the actual mine and not the place of residence in the mine area. Now, Danzi basically says the only reason why I mentioned work to Abo Mohane is because when they approached me, they had said that I am a person in the taxi industry and I stay in Fosslerist. And my response to that is like, no, I don't stay in Fosslerist, and I'm not in the taxi industry. I work in the mines in Coltonville. And that's how the whole situation of us going to Coltonville on the 18th actually came along. It wasn't specifically for the alibi per se, but it was also just to prove that Ndanzi was actually working during the time in which this incident took place. Another issue that Ubaloyi embarked on Monday was the issue of accused number 3 cell phone towers and calls that were somehow in the same towers or pinged at the same towers in which Ndanzi's phone had once pinged. And he goes on to lead the evidence on accused number 3's phone, and some of the towers that he does mention is East Rifontaine, which is near the area that Ndanzi used to work, as well as Dwerenkloof. Now, Danzi's response to this is, well, accused number 3 is before the court, and I do believe that he will still come and testify. So all the questions with regards to his phone's whereabouts, you should actually pose them to him. You should ask him where he was going. But as far as I'm concerned, there aren't any calls between me and Mncube during the times that it said that his phone was in that area. And also, I didn't know Mncube until we went to court. Now, what Ubaloyi is trying to do in this instance is to say that Umncube, because his phone was near Carltonville at a certain time, that means that was the time in which Umncube went to threaten Untanzi. Now, the one thing that's confusing me about this point is that the threat that Umncube made to Untanzi, according to the confession, was done after the incident where Umncube pointed Untanzi with the finger and said Uzonya. Now that happened on the day of the incident according to the confession. Now all of a sudden Ubaloyi is leading evidence on cell phone towers that Untanzi's phone wasn't even at the same towers when Mncube's phone was at those towers, but yet still wants to say that that was the time that Mncube went to threaten Untanzi. Tanzi says, I was never threatened by Umncube. I didn't know Umncube, and there's no way that he could have threatened me. If that's what you're going with, then please can you show me the calls between Mina and Umncube during that time? Because he was in my area, so you say. But where are the calls from his phone to my phone to show that he called me, we met up, and he threatened me? And Ubaloyi was unable to answer that. And another thing is that he says, show me the calls between me and the accused. We've been going around in circles here. I'm here for a case here 2014, but you're busy telling me things that happened in 2015, 2020, 2019, and I don't understand. Then Baloyi says, no, but Mncube's phone for some 30 minutes or 30 odd minutes was in this particular area for quite some time. And Untanzi says, so what does that prove? You will ask Umncube what he was doing in that area, but it has nothing to do with me because I never knew Umncube at the time. In Baloyi's desperation, he even goes as far as saying the date in which Umncube went to the area near where Tanzi was working was 39 days after the incident. So do you honestly think that after 39 days, Umncube still went all the way to Carltonville just to threaten Untanzi? Do you really think that? He then goes back to the issue of the confession to Magistrate Cronier, where it was said that Untanzi was pointed with a finger by accused number 3. So basically, he was threatened by accused number 3. Tanzi's response to this is, can you threaten a person that you don't know? Because I don't know Umncube, so where would he have threatened me? As Untanzi is answering this, he also goes as far as saying, Umncube aze angithreatenishe ungazelaphi. Then Ubaloyi's response to this is, well, you committed the crime together. Umnisi then objects and says that's a very serious allegation because first of all, we are still busy with the process of trying to prove that. So saying that they committed this crime together is a huge allegation. And he basically says that the accusation is baseless. Then the state says, well, they do have witnesses in the house that spoke about the intruders and so on and so forth. Then Mnisi's response is that the witnesses in the house, namely Utumelo Nozandi, did not mention accused number 3. They did not point out to accused number 3, so the state is misleading the court. Then Baloyi then says, well, there are also ballistic evidence, which is very, very questionable. So we're not even going to go into that. And as well as the confessions of the accused, which another thing is very, very questionable. When Ubaloyi touches on the issue of the confession from Cronier, where Untanzi is alleged to have said that he doesn't know whether other accused are arrested, Tanzi's response to this is, you keep claiming that me and the accused are acquaintances or friends. How could I not know where my friends are arrested? And I'm just like, valid, because these people are said to be your friends. You're planning all these murders and doing all these things, yet you don't know where they are arrested when they are arrested. Njani. Now, Umnisi objects to the use of this particular confession because he says, according to section 218, the confession is only used against the person that made the confession. And also in this point, or in this case, Untanzi has blatantly denied this particular confession and he's come to testify before the court. So there's no way that Baloyi can try and sneak in the evidence of the confession to try and sway the judge's mind. Now again on Monday, just before the court adjourned, Untanzi does say to Baloyi, you keep telling me about the towers Mncube, the towers Mncube. Please can you also bring me my towers if there was ever a time where my cell phone connected to the same towers that Mncube connected to during the time that you say that Mncube was in my area. Now the judge then basically gives a warning to Untanzi to say, hey Ramsipili, speak to your client because there are legal repercussions to what he's asking. And my chat is, how are there going to be any legal repercussions, because we all know that the cell phone records for Untanzi for 2014 are not found. So where are they going to come from? azovelaphi lawo ma-cell phone records antanzi njengoba usumshaya nge-warning Judge Ratha? On Tuesday, the 24th of March, we had a new interpreter in the court, Owagam Batsane, and it is so funny because we have had some evidence before this court where a Dr. Batsane was mentioned. So the judge does recall this particular evidence, and he asked the interpreter if he has any relation to Dr. Batsane, and the response of the interpreter is that he does know Dr. Batsane, however, they are of no relation. So we continued with the cross-examination of Untanzi on Tuesday. Most of the things were very repetitive about the cell phone records and the calls between himself and Ulebukile, as well as obviously the towers that they touched on as well. Another thing that they touched on in detail was the issue of meeting with Ubuthelezi on the 13th of July, where Untanzi had basically explained to us that on the 13th of July, he had requested Umabena and Mohane to actually go through his phone because he realized that his phone was in their possession, so that he could call Jack Buthelezi to bring him some toiletries as well as some clothes. Now, in Danzi's testimony, he does mention that he called Jack on that day and they used Mabena's phone. So they got access to his phone, they opened the phone, they got Jack Buthelezi's contact number, and Jack Buthelezi was contacted using Mabena's small blue phone. Now, with this evidence, Maloyi basically crosses Untanzi about it to say, you know, how many times did you call Ujak? And Untanzi previously had only mentioned one occasion where they called Ujak, but the more that he gets into the details of the calls with Ujak, he basically explains that we couldn't have called him just once. We did call him numerous times, although I can't recall how many times we called him, because the first time we actually called him, it was still the time that he was at the mines and we were telling him not to go to the mines and actually meet with us in court. And then when we went to court, we missed him, so we needed to call him again, and then we needed to meet in town. And then in town, we obviously need to direct each other, and every time that would happen, we would drop the call and then they'll call again, and so on and so forth. So there were numerous calls between Jack Buthelezi's number and Mabena's number just to get a hold of him in order for him to be able to give him toiletries, IK, and new clothes. And he also does mention that after calling Jack, he also did call Ulebogile. So on the 13th of July, he met with both Jack and Lebogile. However, the calls were done at separate times. So it was first Jack, then it was Ulebogile. And the reason why he had also called Jack and told him about clothes is just in case he wouldn't have been able to get a hold of Uleb. Now, Ubaloyi just kept on trying to press on the issue that, oh, but you never mentioned that you called him more than one time using Mabena's phone. And he also goes into the issue of the assaults that Untanzi alleged happened to him through the likes of Omabena, where he says the same people that you said were assaulting you were also kind enough to give you a phone to be able to call these people. But guys, now Ubaloyi is trying to play the trick. They couldn't have assaulted you when they were being so nice to give you a call. Oh, come on. Oh, come on. Untanzi was also cross-examined on the issues basically of meeting up with the Jack and how they actually met, the whole scenario of their meeting. Now, Untanzi's testimony is that he was in a car with sliding doors on both sides, and there were other cops that were there that were in uniform and others were not, and Mohane, Mabena obviously were there as well. He says when he met Ujak, Ujak did come into this particular vehicle that he was in, and Umabena was in there as well, Mohona was in there, but the other cops that they were traveling with did step outside the car. But according to according to Jack Buthelezi's evidence, it says that Mabena was outside the car. So what the state is actually pushing at, from what I can see, is that Jack Buthelezi is the person that gave Untanzi the phone because they were left alone in this car. Maloy, when I catch you. Jack Buthelezi also mentions that he was with a gentleman called Undlela. Danzi does say, yes, Jack did come with some gentleman, but I didn't know his name. But if you say it was Undlela, he definitely did come with that guy. And according to Jack's testimony, Undlela actually was also in the car. And Danzi says, no, the Ndlela guy wasn't even in the car. He was outside. Jack spoke to me and I told him what had gone down and everything. And then Jack gave him money. Now, Baloyi questions whether when he spoke to Jack, did he actually cry when he spoke to Jack? Did he explain what was going on? Did he explain why he was arrested? Danzi says yes. Jack asked him what had happened, and he was explaining, and he does say, yes, I did cry, but Jack says he looked away from him, and Danzi says, I don't recall that I looked away from him, but Jack knows angisiyo umuntu ogangayo. So me crying at that time was me basically, being emotional because of all these things that I've been put through. Now, after Jack left, then apparently they met with Ulebu as well. And according to Untanzi, Ulebu came as Jack was leaving. So basically Jack saw Ulebu as well. But now Baloyi, what he was pressing on is the fact that Jack Buthelezi didn't mention that Lebu actually had come at that time and that he saw him. Now, how would he have mentioned that when the state was leading him and he was told how to answer the questions? So the state asked questions that they wanted to ask, and they led him in the way that they wanted to lead him. And obviously that information wouldn't have come out if the state didn't ask. And which is one of Danzi's responses, to say, well, you never asked him, so how could he have responded about Ulebu when you never asked? Yet again, on Tuesday, Baloyi touches on the issues of Constable Zungu and basically the stories that he came to tell the court. Now, Danzi's response to this is that Zungu doesn't know me. And you can tell that Zungu doesn't know me because there's no way that a person that knows me can say that he was reintroduced to me by Ukwabeni on the 26th of April. That's just proof that this person doesn't know me. And the second of all, he goes around asking about me from all these different people. He asked about me go Kwabeni. He asked about me go Makosonke. That just shows that this is a person who doesn't know me. And then he goes on to say, if he knew me so well, Uzungu, he would also know which village I'm from, which he doesn't, but his father did. Now, this is just proof that Zungu actually did not grow up in the village that Untanzi grew up, because he doesn't even know where Untanzi is from. But the father, when the father came to testify, was very specific where in the area or in the village did Untanzi stay. Then Ubaloyi goes on to say, well, we'll get into the issue of your granny and everything, which, in all honesty, is just such a weak case, because Uzungu says that Ugogwakho wagantanzi. It doesn't mean that you know everyone wagantanzi, first of all. Second of all, Untanzi says, yes, the grand may be a wagantanzi, and of course, whatever, that is what it is. But I don't know Uzungu. In fact, even my father's father, I don't even know him. So how much more Uzungu as a person that's not even that close to our family? Yes, so Agantanzi, it may be Uguto Agantanzi, but I don't know him. I've never met him. But I know his father, and his father knows me. So if Zungu claims to know me so well, he should know all the information that his father knows about me as well. The cherry on top on Tuesday was when Untanzi mentioned Uzungu wouldn't have gone to Kwabeni, Zungu wouldn't have gone to Makosonke, and thirdly, Zungu wouldn't have come here to court and confidently say the gentleman in a cap in one of the photos is me. It's only during cross-examination that he changed his tune and said, oh yeah, it's not accused number 2. But when he was led by the state, he said it so boldly and so confidently that the person in the picture is myself. Another issue that Ubaloyi touched on was the issue of Ingoma, where they asked certain transactions that took place on Danzi's bank statement, where he says, no, well, these transactions were taking place in Johannesburg, but you said you're not familiar with Johannesburg. Danzi's response to this is, when I go to Ingoma, I go to Ingoma, and if I need anything, I would send my brother. And he even makes an example using Judge Ratha, where he says, the court came here and told us that they played soccer. Now in soccer, you know that when you go to a game, you don't go to the stadium and start gallivanting all over the stadium. You get there and there's rules that you need to follow. You get into camp, you stay together in camp, and then you go to the game and you stay there at the game and follow the rules of the game. You don't just go around and doing as you please, which was a great example, because clearly that is what Umkido is to them, or Ingoma is to them. It's that discipline that comes with the sport or the Ingoma that they do. They go there, they perform and they basically leave. And that's exactly what he said that happened on that day. He might have given his card to his brother to buy him lunch or whatever the case may be, but when he's at Ngomeni, he stays at the ground in which the Ngoma is taking place. Now Ramsipili had an objection where he was saying, we've been going around in circles for quite some time. We're back now to the issue of Efosloras yet again, yet we've dealt with this issue more than 2 times. And then he says the court, a few weeks ago when I was leading the witness, I came back on a certain day and wanted to retouch on the issues of the previous day, and the court came down on me like a ton of bricks. But now Baloyi has been allowed to go back and back onto topics that he's already dealt with. Baloyi goes back into the issue of Constable Zungu's testimony, where he talks about the situation in Kwabini's room and the light and everything. Danzi's response to this is that, first of all, Angmazu Zungu. Second of all, Kwabini came to testify before this court and he said that I don't know where he stays, of which is the truth. So how is it that I was at Kwabini's room when Kwabini has said that I wasn't at his room and I don't know where he stays? And then he says, third of all, I don't know accused 3, 4, and 5. I met them for the first time in Boksburg Court when we appeared for this particular case. And then Ubaloyi goes back into the issue of the Kumalo house, and Danzi basically denies and says, I don't know where the Kumalo house is. I was never at the Kumalo house. And then we get into the issue of Umangena measuring Undanzi as well. Now, guys, there's something that I've been reiterating over and over and over again. One is that the person who did the post-mortem for Usenzo's death said that the shooter had to be taller than Usenzo. Now, all Mangena going around looking for people that are of a certain height tells you that that is consistent, right? The second thing is the issue of the foot injury. Now, do you think that the police would go around searching for people with foot injuries if there was no one who got shot in the foot at Senzo's crime scene? Longer time. Sorry, I didn't say that. But do you honestly think that they would go around looking for injuries on the feet if no one got shot on the foot? Just think about it. Think about it, guys. I'll give you a second. But there is no way that police are looking for a tall person, which will match what the post-mortem said, and a person with an injury on the foot that will match the version that Umgomezulu gave before this court. Umuti Longwetwala was shot on the foot. Now, on the 25th of March, we go into the evidence of basically the measuring and all the other testimonies of the witnesses that actually mentioned the height. Now, one of the people that Ubaloyi talks about is Umakaleni. Now, as you know, it is said that Umakaleni is late. However, the testimony of Umakaleni, or the statement of Umakaleni, was introduced by the defense through Steenkamp's statement. Now, Steenkamp is the lady that compiled the identikit, and she is the person that spoke to all of the people in the house, including Makaleni, I think 2 days after the incident, where she was meant to compile the identikit. Now, one of the things that keeps raising an eyebrow for me when it comes to all the people in the house in particular is that none of them were able to describe the second intruder. Now, all of a sudden, we have a Tumelo that can dark identify, we have a Zandi that can dark identify, and we have a Makaleni that's talking about ama gold tooth, nama height abantu in the dark and everything. Right now, Makaleni says the person's height was about 1.8 meters, as well as this black hoodie, the gold tooth, which Ubaloyi is now leaving out on purpose for some reason. And also another issue is the age, where Makaleni said the person might have been between 25 years old or somewhere along those lines. Now, what Ubaloyi tries to point out is that Undanzi was around 25 at that time, and Undanzi says, well, no, actually I was 23. Actually, I was 23. And then Ubaloyi says, well, but that's round about the same age, and you were just 2 months shy of 24. So basically, you were close to that age group. Then he mentions the height, where he says, Makaleni said you were 1.8, or the person was 1.8 meters tall. Now, Ndanzi to this says, do you honestly think that I would be the same height from 2014 right through to 2020? 2020 when Mangena measured me. I don't believe that I was 1.8 meters when the incident happened. Right when Mangena measured me, I was 1.86 or 1.83, but when Mangena measured me, I was 1.86, but I doubt that 6 years prior, I was still 1.8, because in Ngiyakhula is umuntu ngiyakhula, and as iminyaka iqhubeka, I'm getting taller, you understand? And then there was a huge argument in court where Ubaloyi says, well, basically the difference between the two heights, the height Yamakaleni where he says it's 1.80 and the height Yamangena where he says it's 1.86 is 0.06 centimeters. Omnis is like, it's not 0.06, it's 6 centimeters, not 0.06. And the judge is like, no, but it's common sense. Common sense go better. Common sense is not so common because we are better, Judge Ratha. We are better. He's like, no, but it's common sense. And he's like, let's bring a calculator. Then Ubaloyi actually admits that Umnisi was right. It's actually 6. And then Umnisi throws a jab to the judge and says, yeah, Bantu education, yes, thanks to Bantu education, because Ujaji threw a comment about, it's Bantu education. So basically, Umnisi doesn't have a clue what he's talking about, when in actual fact he's right. And the common sense that he's talking about is not so common to him. Now, Baloyi asked this question where he says, if you're saying Constable Zungu doesn't know you, then why would he say all these things about you? Undanzi just puts these points down. He says, 1, Zungu is lying. Zungu is lying because 1, he says he knows me, and he doesn't, because if he knew me, Kwabeni wouldn't have needed to introduce me to him. And 2, he wouldn't have asked for pictures of me from Kwabeni to go show Oli Shaban. And he says, 4, he wouldn't have pointed at a picture before this court where there's a gentleman wearing a cap and said that was me. So all these 4 points are clear indications that Zungu doesn't know me. Then we got into the issue of the day in which Ndanzi was alleged to be found with bullets in his possession when Kininda, Muhola, Mohane, Mabena, Yende actually drove him to Rustenburg after his court appearance. Now, Ndanzi's version of events is that, yes, they did drive to Rustenburg and they were in a convoy. Kininda, Muhola, and Yende were in one vehicle. Himself, Mabena, and Mohane were in one vehicle following each other. He does say that they went to Pugeng police station and they got escort from Pugeng. And his version is that it was several police officers that came with them. Now, Mohane's version, on the other hand, is that they went to the Pugeng police station, and Mohola's version is that they met Undanzi at the police station, which Undanzi disagrees to. He then, Mohola then says that at the police station, only 2 officers escorted them to Ndanzi's place. Now, when they get to Ndanzi's place, Ndanzi's version is that he was left with the police from Pugeng at the car, whilst Kininda, Muhola, Mohane, Mabena, and Yende walked towards his place of residence. He says that they walked towards there, they didn't even get into the yard, and then they turned back. When they got back, Mohane then comes up to him and he says, we found this in your room. And she basically doesn't show him what's in his hand, but there was a black plastic bag. According to the other police version, it's that they went into Dazi's room. How they got the key for his room was from his pocket. Mohane got the key from his pocket, and they opened his room and they searched his room, and that's when they found the bullets. Now, guys, as we say, Buyan. Dazi is arrested. Ndanzi is in possession of his keys. Guys, don't you take his possessions and put them in a SAP, 13, 14, 22, whatever SAP it is? Why is Ndanzi dandering with his keys in his pockets? Isn't that like a risk for him to undo his handcuffs and stuff? Why does he have ama keys in his pockets? That's the first thing that put me off. Second thing is, if you could see the keys, where was the phone? Where was the phone? If you were able to search him and get keys from his pocket, why couldn't you find the phone? Journey 2. 3 is that, okay, nina wonke umuntu enimubophayo nina fanele atholakale nama-bullet. Everybody that the cold case unit arrests, they have a bullet case loaded in there. Black plastic bag, bullets. All of them. Is that a coincidence, or is it some modus operandi of the cold case unit? As Baloyi continues to cross-examine Untanzi, and he's asking a lot of questions with regards to these bullets and how they were found and what happened with the bullets and the bullets and the bullets and the bullets. And Umnisi basically objects and says, what is the relevance of these bullets in this case? Because in this case, we're not dealing with bullets. We're not dealing with bullets, we're dealing with the murder of Senzo Meyiwa, and there's nothing that has to do with bullets in this particular case. That case, Yama Buleti, is case 118 of 6 of 2020. That case has been finalized. So what are we still doing going through the evidence of that? Because yes, to go search the room is one thing, because you went to go search the room according to the police to look for the hoodie. That part of evidence is cool. But now when you're going into the issue of the bullets, then it becomes a problem. And the state basically argues that they are dealing with credibility, and the credibility of this witness with regards to that is very important. Danzi was like, hold my beer. Because now that you're talking about the bullets, let's get into that. Because he then says, first of all, the issue of the bullets, I won that case fair and square. The reason I won that case is because, one, the two cops that came to testify, Mukhola and Mukhane, were saying different numbers when it came to how many bullets were found. One said 11, one said 38. 2, when it came to the issue of the bullets in court, they told them to bring the bullets, and the bullets were never brought. 3, they asked them for a warrant of search. The warrant of search was never brought. So I won that case. So now you want to come talk about the bullets. If you want to take it there, we can take it there. And I was like, yes. Baloyi asked about the issue of the key. I don't know Ubaloyi noma right like or this case is affecting him, he needs the recess. But he then asked about the key. He says, how many keys did you have to your house? And Danzi said, I only had 1 key. And he's like, didn't you stay with Ulebu? And Danzi says, no, Ulebu would visit and she would come when I was there. And then he says, so you only had 1 key? And he said, yes. And remember, when I was arrested, Lebu was there. So I couldn't have locked the door. The key was left with Ulebu. So that key that Mabena says he got from my pocket, he never did, because I never had a key. And I was like, yes. Now they continued on Thursday to talk about, the issue of the keys and how they gained access to his house, to search his house. And Danzi says, my house was never searched. The keys were never in my pocket till today. My keys had my house keys, my work keys, and a magnet, a work magnet. I think it's the tag for work. So they couldn't have fit in his pocket in any case. And he says those keys are still there till today. So these ones that are saying they entered my room with those keys, non-existent story. It doesn't exist. It's not true. Now, one thing that put me a little bit off with Ndanzi's testimony on Thursday is the issue of the gate where he stayed. That bit was a bit sketchy for me personally, because he says that where he stayed, there were several rooms and there was an RDP house, but the gates, the entrance to these units was one gate. Now, he says that the gate remained closed all of the time, locked all of the time. So each person had to open every time they went in. But where he lost me is where he said there was a tuck shop in the yard. Now, he didn't draw a picture for us to understand how this tuck shop worked, but the insinuation that I got is that people needed to use the same gate to get into the yard to go to the tuck shop. Now, I don't know, guys. For me, it doesn't make sense that you have a tuck shop in your yard and you keep your gate locked at all times and open every time you have a customer. For me, that doesn't make sense. That's just unokwazi. Ukuthi mengidayisa, I want people to have easy access to my store. Why would I lock the gates and have to go and open every time umuntu azothenga? Like that part, that one didn't make sense to me, but it's okay. It is what it is. Now, Baloyi asked Undanzi if it was not surprising to him that he was been taken to Rustenburg and he was taken to Bukeng and all of that. And Danzi said nothing was surprising to me with these police because everything they did was things that they were not telling me. I would just rock up at a place and I'm there. I would just rock up wherever and I'm there. Nothing was explained to me every time I would move with these police. Now, some of the evidence that Ubaloyi touches on is the evidence of Umukhola when she talks about now the hoodies that they saw in Danzi's room whilst they were conducting the search. Now, the reason why I say Mukhola's evidence is bullshit is this. Mukhola says that they saw several number of hoodies in the room and Undanzi even requested to take one. And it was a gray one and it had red. Now, if Ndanzi had taken a hoodie on the 19th, why was he still wearing the same clothes he was wearing when he was arrested on the 19th when he went to Rapado? Why was he still wearing the same clothes when he went to Krunia? Mukhola amangenu kelo are too much. As you know, yeah, Undanzi took a grey hoodie, no red, Undanzi says, I never took a hoodie. Because if they had searched my house, I would have taken clothes. I wouldn't have needed to wait for Jack Ubtelezi to bring my clothes and my cosmetics on the 13th of July if I had already taken things on the 19th of June. As it doesn't make sense. And guys, probabilities. What are the chances that you go to your house with the police, you have the whole opportunity to take your clothes, your cosmetics and everything, and you don't take them? Then you go to Magistrate Kronia 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 5 days later, and you say you haven't taken a bath when you took your jacket and you were able to take your jacket. Mukholo na manga, girl. Danzi then points out that the reason why Mukhola knows about that grey jacket with red is because they've been sitting with my phone and they have pictures of me. Now, this is very, very clear. All these hoodies that they're mentioning that they saw in the wardrobe are hoodies of pictures that are in his phone that are being led as exhibits before this court to emphasize Indaba Yama. So they didn't see them in the wardrobe when they were searching for the black hoodie. They saw them Goma pictures. Ubani Slimala. Now Ubalo says, so the police drove with you, they went to your place and they even opened a case of ammunition, but you're saying that that is amanga and all that. Ntanzi basically says, yes, ubugebengu, qhutshwa bona ubugebengu. So amaphoyisa angenzela ubugebengu ayangiframe amaphoyisa. That's what they tried to do. And Ubalo says, well, they went all the way to Pukeng, they opened a case, they did this, and you're saying that is all ubugebengu. Ntanzi, yes, it is ubugebengu. That's exactly what they were doing. And he even goes as far as saying, if that case, your ammunition was legit, they would have brought the bullets to court. I see in this case, the gun was brought to court. We all got to see it in this court. Every single one of us got to see the gun. But in Shabani, when I went for my ammunition case, they were asked, where's the bullets? Bullets Next thing, where's the bullets? No ballistics, no bullets, nothing. And then on top of that, Mukhola says it's 11 bullets. Mukhane says it's 38 bullets. So do you think that's a legit case? And then we get back to the issue of Undanzi being booked in at Pukeng police cells. Now, this was a major issue sometime last year. I remember I post a video about it. But for the sake of a recap, I will put the video here where Umukhane does say that Undanzi was never put in police cells in Pukeng, just as Undanzi said. Please listen.
Ammunition was he processed at the cells at Pukeng?
Now, Ubaloyi mentions the notice of rights, he mentions the OB books, he mentions everything, and he says all of this was done. Is that what you're saying? Are you still maintaining that? Ati, first of all, my room was never searched, so there were no bullets that were found. And also, Epukeng, I never went into the cell, so I still maintain that it was Ukebeng. If the bullets did exist, they should have been brought to court, Ipel. Those bullets should have been brought to court. Now, Ubaloyi, when he says he can't really go into the details of Itala, Lantanzi, Lama ammunition, Untanzi says that case was done and dusted. And Ubaloyi basically says, but we want to put to you that the reason why the case was, you were acquitted for the case is basically because it was criminality that was happening is not true. And one of the reasons that the court, according to Mohola, the court said that the reason why they don't believe the whole ammunition story is because you were arrested on the 16th and there was someone that remained in the house on the 16th up until the 19th. So basically, those bullets could have been our normal ban. That's what the court said. And then Undanzi comes with the clapback where he says, you can't even tell me about the evidence Mohola with regards to the judgment of that case, because one, Mohola was not there for the judgment. The only person that was there was Kininda, Mabena, Yende, and I think Mohane. Ati Mohola was not there. Ati, another thing, let me tell you something, because you want to talk about Mohola being all good and mighty. Mohola was kicked out of court because she was lying. The court said, Pumangalo Amiyango. I was like, because she was lying. The court was like, one person is telling us about 11 bullets, another is telling us about 38 bullets. And also, when Muhola was asked where Umuhane was, Muhola said she didn't see Umuhane. Meanwhile, Umuhane was there at the parking when I arrived. I even told the court, she's saying she hasn't seen Umuhane, but Umuhane is downstairs. I saw Umuhane when I came in, and it was a whole issue, Manji, attacking the credibility of Muhola. That's what Undanzi did. He did this with the credibility of Muhola to the dustbins to hell. Okay, that's what he did. He basically said, one, she was kicked out of court for lying. Two, Beno Mukhane, they muddled up the number of bullets. They never bought the bullets. They told us the bullets were with Kininda. They told us there were no ballistics. The bullets never arrived in court. So Muhola is all good and mighty and such an honest witness, that can come and tell this court anything once you don't even go there. And I was like, yo. Now Ubaloyi basically reads the reasons that Umgomezulu put on record as to why Undanzi was acquitted on this case. One of them being the lapse of time. And as Ubaloyi is reading this, Judge Ratha is laughing, almost to say Undanzi is lying. But when you listen to what Umgomezulu put on record, it's exactly what Danzi has said before this court. He says, one, it's the lapse of time with regards to his arrest on the 16th and someone being left in the house. Two, there was no warrant of search, which Undanzi did mention. Three, there was no warrant of arrest for Undanzi. And four, they didn't bring the exhibits to court. That is everything that Undanzi has mentioned. So Undanzi is like, but that's exactly what I just said. It's just that I just went further in explaining the other reasons, because these people also talked about 11 and 38 bullets, which is another reason that is not stated to what Umgomezulu said. But I'm here in the box to speak for myself, because that's what the court asked us to come do. So I'm speaking for myself, and I'm not leaving any stone unturned. Now Baloyi decides to go back to the issue of the hoodie when this point of Mohola comes through, and he basically tries to press on the issue of Constable Zungu and what he explained about what he had seen with Undanzi and changing the hoodies that he had changed on that particular day, allegedly on the 26th of October. Now Undanzi's response to this is that, firstly, I don't know Zungu. The first time I saw him was here in court. And second of all, I'm confused because this interpreter kept referring to the hoodie as Ijaz. I don't know why the hell he kept referring to a hoodie as Ijazi or Ibanj. It's a hoodie, Ijaket. Like, it's a hoodie. It's not Ibanj. It's not... No. Nabo interpreter bale case are going to be the end of me. But anyway... he basically goes through the evidence Kazungu again, Ubaloyi, and Undanzi brings up something very important that caused a whole lot of an issue in court. Danzi then says, I hear everything that Uzungu is saying, but as I said, I don't know Uzungu. But what's surprising me is how a witness can be mentioning exhibit numbers on his statement before he comes to testify. Now, this is something that a lot of people might have missed, but Constable Zungu's statement, not testimony, statement, talks about a picture where he's referring to accused number 3, and it's picture A195, if I'm not mistaken. Now, why is he already mentioning exhibit numbers in his statement? Now, this It's just an indication that Zungu had access to the whole docket in order for him to prepare his statement, not even his testimony, his statement. He sat down with the exhibits with the prosecutors. Is that even allowed? Untanzi basically says this just comes to show that Uzungu wahlala phansi wayiplana lento. And that's true. Because there's no way that you should be making an independent statement as a witness, and yet you've been given information. Basically, you've been fed information to put in your statement. That's exactly what happened there. Of course, Judge Ratha would come to the rescue where he says, no, to be fair, there's no mention of the exhibit numbers by the witness. The witness is led by the state, and Ramsipila stands up and saying, no. What we're explaining is that Constable Zungu's statement was written on the 30th of May in 2023, but he's already mentioning photo A195 in the statement. The judge says, no, but wasn't the exhibit numbered by the state? And he makes a big hoo-ha about the whole thing. Ramsipila says, no, but that was before he testified. The judge gets so mad to a point where he's already saying, abo yeses, because you know him and yeses, he will say yeses. He's busy saying, abo yeses, by the way, didn't you number these, here in court? Nisi then stands up and says, Judge, please listen to understand. Please understand this. As here is the statement. He holds up Zungu's statement like this. Baloyi wanted to die. He holds up Zungu's statement like this and says, paragraph 21 of this statement says, Carlos had dreadlocks and a gold tooth, which are appearing on photo A94. That's from line 10 to 17. How did Zungu already have these pictures when he was writing his statement? That's the point we're trying to make. Judge Ratha then says, no, but they were numbered by the prosecutor here before the court. Well, Judge Ratha, this video is for you. This video is for you. You like going on and on about, they're saying I'm corrupt. All the things that you were doing, are signs of a corrupt judge. I'm sorry. I am so sorry. These are signs of a corrupt judge. There's no way a normal judge acts like this. There is no way a normal judge in a high court with 50 years experience acts and behaves like this. Nisi tries to explain that, no, listen, understand, the statement was made before the testimony of Uzungu. So therefore, Uzungu was testifying on exhibits that he had already seen that were not yet handed up to the courts for him to testify about. And the judge says, no, that never happened. That never, ever. Hey, guys, in the courts, I was shocked. Then Amnesty says, but that's exactly what is happening. That is exactly what is happening before this court. Then Baloyi tries to explain, oh no, the photos are numbered like this. As Amnesty, no, it's unfair. What's happening here is unfair, and the concern of Undanzi is actually valid, because it is very strange that a statement of a witness is already mentioning exhibit numbers that are before the court, which is indicative that Uzungu doesn't know these people. He needed to be shown pictures before he writes a statement, before he comes to testify, so that he can come and point at the right pictures when he's led in front of this court. And you tell me that corruption doesn't exist. Sicela inquiry into the Senzo Meyiwa case. Now guys, as if matters couldn't get any worse, Mnisi then says, this is the statement. Judge Ratha says, I'm not talking about the type statement. Excuse me? What statement are you talking about? Because Zungu, the same Zungu, came to this court, told us that there was a written statement. But when the defense was asking him, then all of a sudden there's no written statement. He wrote all this information on pieces of paper. When Judge Ratha, you yourself told Zungu, you rested the court. You said, court adjourned. Zungu must go to KZN to find these notes. Zungu came back and he said the notes were shredded. Now you are asking about a written statement. Which one is that one that you're asking for? Which statement are you asking for? Because in this court, there never was a written statement. So what do you mean you're not talking about the typed one? What the hell do you mean? trust Mnisi to explain everything in detail to the judge. He then says, no, Judge Ratha ngathi uyakhohlwa. Sa-ajena la. Wathi uZungu ayayofuna a-statement. Wabuye uZungu wathi i-statement isirediwe. So isiphi statement esibhalwe ngesandla that you want? Which one is that one? Actually, there isn't a handwritten one. There was only a typed version, and this is the version, and it's an exhibit before this court. And the same exhibit that we're talking about is mentioning I'm a photo number, I'm an exhibit before the person came to testify. So what do you mean? Judge Ratha, with his chest, says, no, you can take me up on appeal. Nisi says, what do you mean take you up on appeal? Because there hasn't been a verdict in this case yet. What do you mean take you up on appeal? Guys, it's clear. Judge Ratha's mandate was clear. Gweba abafana at all costs. And at this moment, he just wants the defense to recuse him. Awendao. You're not going anywhere. You will sit your nonsense and sort out this case. When, Judge Ratha, when? You will sit your ass down and finish this case is what you're going to do. What you're not going to do is run. Because you want the defense to take you up. We're not going to do that. The case and because there's no evidence that these guys are involved in the killing of Senzo Meyiwa. That's what's going to happen. Then the judge says, well, you don't need to wait for me to give a verdict. You can take me up on appeal through section 318 or 319. Then Nisi says, no, it's actually 317 and it's for irregularity. So are you actually saying that there's an irregularity? Clearly. And we don't want to do that because this case has gone too far. This case has gone too far. As Funelini judge, when I judge Ratha, you sit your ass down, you finish this case. Then the judge goes on to say, there were pictures, 7,000 pictures, and Ubaloyi keeps saying, yes. Urabasipil is like, no, the state can't keep on saying yes. What are you saying yes to? What 7,000 pictures are you saying yes to? And then Ubaloyi is like, oh, actually there were 700 pictures. And I'm just like, he's busy saying yes to the nonsense that the judge is speaking here. God, it doesn't make sense. Now, Ubaloyi, when we come back from the break, tries to dissolve the issue of the pictures where he says, oh, there was an incident that happened before the break and it's the issue of the pictures and no, Uzungu did speak about pictures in his evidence in chief. Guys, we were not talking about evidence in chief here. We were talking about a statement. And he says he does mention pictures in his statement, but it's not pictures that are before this court. And then he says that those pictures are pictures that were meant to be shown to Uli Shabane and. Then Umumala is asked to respond, and Umumala says, I want to comment on Zungu's statement. He says that the statement was made on the 30th of May, and Zungu testified in September. So Uzungu is already talking about exhibit Ngome Ezo testifying on September. Ikona 19 jalo, guys. No, but the crux is everybody received these exhibits. Everybody has this information. But that's not the point. The point that we're trying to get at is that the witness had the exhibits before he wrote a statement. Not the defense, not the state, not the court when the evidence is led, but the witness before he wrote a statement was given an exhibit to sit down, look at the pictures, then write a statement. His statement guys, no matter. But anyway, Ratha then continues and says, oh, but there was the evidence ka porcheta. And I'm like, porcheta? There was never a porcheta in this court, in this case. Lapo he's referring to Dupree, guys. Dupree, the person that brought him a AVL. He was asking Sitwala ukuthi accuse nambaba. Ujudge Ratha gweba labafana. And he'll even gweba them for charges that are not on the charge sheets. Because at this point, he's adding evidence, he's adding a man accused. He doesn't know how many accused are before this court. Lastly, Babe Pelelo accused Beshelbe 5. Auntie, where's the other one? I don't know. No me dementia, no ma gwenzakala no Judge Ratha, but there's something going on. And this is not the first time. Because when a case, GP what? Where he sentenced a person for a charge that wasn't part of his charges. One convict, Judge Ratha, ends a mistake. Nana, I foresee a mistake. Nas. Now, Umnisi, after Baloyi addresses the court, basically says he's flabbergasted that the state is trying to dilute the issue when the judge has already said we should take him up on appeal. So what is the state exactly trying to do? He also does put it on record and puts it very clear what they were arguing about before the case, and the issue of Uzungu actually talking about the exhibit numbers before he came to testify. The judge's response to this is that there's nothing wrong with that. As you know, there's nothing wrong with that. The state can lead their witnesses in the way that they want to lead their witnesses. And the judge, I feel like he does this purposefully. He does these things purposefully to act like he doesn't know what's going on when he knows exactly what's going on. Because he acts as if this was done during the leading of Uzung, where these numbers are. No, it's in his statement before he came to. Yo, guys. Yo. And then, on top of all of that mess, he now comes and wants to be Cinderella and wear the golden slipper because he says that Untanzi said that the court yenza ubugebengu. When did Untanzi say that? Because Untanzi was talking about ammunition, ukuthokini indaba yamframer, and that is ubugebengu. What does that have to do with the judge? Aba guilty, guys. Aba guilty. Untanzi never said anything about the court being but here is Judge Ratha being offended. He says he takes offense to the fact that Untanzi says benzu. When Anoban, were you part of the investigating team? Ammunition. Why are you so pressed about issues that have nothing to do with you? And if you actually listen the way that you say you listen with your 50 years experience, you would know that Untanzi was not talking about the court when he referred to ubugebengu. He was talking about the investigating officers that were framing him with bullets that never came to Hlabani court. And he even made an example. Actually, kule court, at least isibhamu safika sasibona. Ehlabani isibhamu asifika ngakhombisa kona ubugebengu. Why are Judge Lee offended? Why offended? Now, what I liked about Umnisi, to put Judge Ratha at ease, he explains everything so well, where he says Ntanzi never ever said that the judge yenza ubugebengu. Ntanzi ukhulume nge-ammunition case, waze wakhuluma ngokuthi. There's nowhere when Ntanzi said that the court yenza ubugebengu. Please, there's no way. Ramsipile also stands up and actually echoes the comments of Umnisi, where he says, if Ntanzi did say that, I would be the first one to actually apologize on his behalf as his attorney. But he never said the court yenza ubugebengu. Never did. Now, guys, just as a reminder, the person that told the court to its face that ubugebengu is Ubab Absalom Zungu. Nyambona to Ratha asile la khanda lakhe lithathi kahle. Now, Ubaloyi continues to put the versions of Uzungu, Zandi, Tumelo, Makaleni, and some of the officers that talk about the hoodie and everything, tries to bring those things together to say, two witnesses in the house spoke about a hoodie, the two police officers spoke about a hoodie. In fact, 3 witnesses spoke about the hoodie. It's Uzandi, Tumelo, and then Makaleni, as well as the officers that went to search your house spoke about a hoodie, as well as Uzungu, who also spoke about a hoodie. And Tanzi's response to this is, Uzungu cannot be trusted. Uzungu cannot be made to be this person who's got this perfect testimony about the events of that day, because firstly, I don't know Uzungu. And Uzungu unamanga because Uzungu uwenze ama incidents at 2017 or izinto of meeting of abantu abathize in 2017, and he moved them back to 2014. And he says, if I had gone to visit Efosloras Gwabini in 2014, I wouldn't have missed Gwabini. But Gwabini has come to this court and testified and said, I don't even know where he stays. Ati, evidence Kazungu cannot be trusted because the same people that he's saying he was with have said that they were never with him. Now he states in that says that that's hearsay. Mrs. like, how is that hearsay? And I'm also like, how is that hearsay? Because it's only hearsay when you're saying you heard from. But these people have come to court, guys. No matter like, has the state forgotten that the same people that Uzungu talks about, that he was at their room, that he picked them up from a Carlton Center? came to testify before this court and they said that event never happened in 2014. So what do they mean it's hearsay? Hearsay in Journey. Now Umnisi objects and says, you know what, state, you cannot now say that the evidence that Undanzi or the answer that Undanzi has given is hearsay, because first of all, you introduced this through you talking about Zungu being such a perfect witness. Right? Now they're answering you and you're saying it's hearsay. No, it can't be. You incited that. And then the judge says, oh no, but you know what they say about hearsay? Hearsay is not permissible. Atumne says, yes, I agree. Hearsay is not permissible. But in this case, the information that Undanzi is referring to is not hearsay, because the people that he's referring to, that he says, Abantu aye nabo. Abantu aye nabo. He's referring to Makosonke Nokwabini. It's clear. We all know that. It's clear as day. It doesn't need to be explained. It doesn't need to be what. And to Judge Ratha, no, nothing is clear. The court can't say that because Undanzi never was specific to the names. He never said Makosonke and Kwabini. Mnisi's like, it's okay. We'll take it up in cross-examination. But the point is, guys, whether nifuna ukuyitwista kanjani nibhekise kuphi niyenze njani, the person that was said to have the party maker, Kwabini, testified and said never in 2014. Never in 2014. The person that was said to be fetched the Carlton Center said never in 2014. Said 2017, yeah. Never in 2014. So how are you now going to take Zungu's evidence over 3-4 people? It's actually 4 people, actually 5 people, because Usbiya says it never happened. He's also a witness. He's testified. Undanzi said it never happened. He's a witness. He was also said to be there. That's no longer hearsay. They've come to the box. They've spoken their truth. Kwabini has come to testify. He says never happened. And this party was said to be happening in his room, but it never happened according to Kwabini. Makosonke says, Zungu 2014. No, Zungu came to my place 2017. So this is what happened. Tembisa so. Never that. So 4 witnesses that was said to be at the place have testified before this court, and all of them has said never happened. One witness, Uzungu, is the only one that talks about this event, has no corroboration. Funny? Yes. Now, today being Friday, we focus more on the issues of this beard that Undanzi allegedly had during the period of 2014. Now, one of the things that Undanzi pointed out is the fact that in 2014, he didn't have a beard. And I like the emphasis of the fact that he says all the pictures that you keep showing the court are pictures from 2020, 2018, 2019. And in 2014, I never had a beard. He even goes as far as saying the picture from Capitec that is before the court is closest to the time of the incident, yet I didn't have a beard at that time. Why is it that you're not showing that picture? Baloyi says, oh, well, you do understand that 2013 was like a year and 6 months after the whole, before the incident. So that's a very long time. And Danzi said, I'm glad you picked up that it's a very long time, because 2014 to 2020 is an extremely long time too. I was like, yes, Danzi, tell him. They went through some of the evidence of Undlovu, who was the downloader of accused number 2's phone, where he talks about him seeing an O-shaped beard, as well as this hoodie that he says is black with red. Danzi's response to this is that, firstly, the hoodie that he's saying is black is actually navy with red and not black. But also another thing is that the picture is from 2020. And I did find it extremely smart of Undanzi, because I think Ubaloyi was trying to trick him with the dates, where he mentioned that the dates were in 2020 in November. And Undanzi, being so alert to the situation, was able to say the pictures were taken in 2020. However, I did before this court tell the court that I dispute the dates on these pictures, because these pictures were taken in 2020 but not on the dates that are reflected on the metadata. So I think Ubaloyi was trying to trick Undanzi to see if he would remember that during the time he was actually arrested, and Undanzi actually did remember, which was very good for him to remember. Then they talk about this Inchebele Goti, where Undanzi makes reference to say ayikho nje umuntu onentshebe efana neyembuzi or imbuzi enentshebe efana neyomuntu, because intshebe yembuzi ayikhuli so ikhula downward. So, and also he then goes on to say you cannot compare iy'thombe 2014 ney'thombe 2020 and expect the same outcome. It's like comparing a black cow to a white cow. That's impossible. Akwazi ukuthi you can try and compare isithombe 6 years later from isithombe 6 years ago. Ushiye lesi that is closer to the time. And that is something that I absolutely love about what Ntanzi picked up today. Another thing that I like that Ntanzi pointed out is the issue of injebe yakhe, where Ubaloyi says in the picture yase benki he can see injebe, and the picture was eventually passed around in court, and even the color version of it, and Ntanzi says this is not injebe. I don't know where you see injebe, but there's no injebe la. You cannot tell me that by a few strands nyana of injebe lana you're saying that in injebe ayikho injebe la. And this picture was in 2013. And what I loved in closing for today, Ntanzi then points to Mncube and says ngicela ningibukele no accused number 3, ningitshela ukuthi this beard that you're seeing on accused number 3, these small little bits and drabs of injebe on accused number 3, that's injebe. Is that what you're trying to say? And that's where I was like, if this person was so scared of accused number 3, because remember in his confession it said that he was pointed by accused number 3 uyamsab, but yet he's able to stand here before the court and say accused number 3 yon injebe. I was like, oh my gosh, Ntanzi, you really did one big one on the state before closing today. So those were the proceedings for the week. Ubaloyi then indicated that it is the end of term, so basically we will be on recess up until the 13th of April. So guys, take some time, rewind, recap on my previous videos that I have on my channel. There are some gems in those, because I did speak on the DNA, I did speak on the ballistics, I did speak on Constable Zungu's evidence. So go back to those videos, refresh your memories before we get back to the proceedings on the 13th of April. These were the proceedings for the week. I hope that you guys did enjoy this video. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up.
I ran out of space, guys. I will see you guys on the 13th of April. Bye.